So hi everyone, my name's Eder and welcome to another Project Wesker video. And in today's video, we're actually going to be talking about everything we know so far about the upcoming Resident Evil Reboot movie called Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, right before we get started, I just want to mention that this movie is going to come out on November 24th of this year. And so, we might be getting our first trailer of this movie in just a couple of weeks. And so if that happens and this information gets outdated, I'll be sure to leave a tag on the left side of the screen, or I'll also leave a tag to the latest information video down in the description, and so, or in the comments as well. And so make sure to check that, right? And the best way to basically keep up with all of the videos that I post is to actually subscribe, right? And so make sure to subscribe, and also remember to punch that notification bell like Chris punches that rock in Resident Evil 5. But in any case, let's get started with the video. And so the director of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is actually going to be Johannes Roberts. Now, Johannes Roberts is actually, the latest movie that he actually made was called 47 Meters Down. And so it was actually like a survival horror shark movie. And so this movie is actually going to be distributed by Sony Pictures' Screen Gems, and it's actually going to be produced by Constantine Films. And so if those names sound familiar, it's actually because these were actually the same production companies that helped produce the Milla Jovovich Resident Evil films. But just to be clear, right, this movie and those Milla Jovovich movies are a completely separate thing. And so just like I stated, right, this is a Resident Evil reboot movie, right? And so they're rebooting the whole franchise. But I think it's also funny, right, that those companies are back and they're gonna, basically rebooting the series again, since they made so much money with those other movies. So there's actually a lot of Resident Evil media that's actually coming out, whether it's this year or it's next year. But I think it's really funny, but it's also a little bit confusing, right? So I actually thought when I first heard about this movie that it was the Netflix live action show. But this is a completely different thing. And we also just recently got the Resident Evil anime CGI anime series, Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, that just released last month. And so, there's a lot of Resident Evil media out there. And so, but just so you guys know, this is the movie, right? This is the Resident Evil Reboot movie. Another quick funny fact about this movie is actually that it was filmed, there's a lot of filming locations that took place in the greater Sudbury area in Ontario, Canada. And the funny thing is that I actually just recently passed through this area just last month, since a lot of you guys know that I actually was moving, right? And so I moved to the other side of the country. And so, I actually had to pass by this area. And one of the funny things is that this area, at night is a bit creepy. So I actually think it's a really good, it fits the movie. If I were to make a Resident Evil movie, that's actually a really good place to make it, since like I said, it has that whole creepy vibe to it, especially at night. But so I'm actually going to show up a whole bunch of set photos right now of pictures that people of the Sudbury area took, right, of the sets that they were building. I think that's really funny if you're just walking down the street and all of a sudden you see like the RPD, right, the whole the whole arches of RPD, or you're walking and you see like the orphanage, right? So a location that got turned into an orphanage, or you see Raccoon City everywhere in your town, right? That'd be really cool. And so, if this movie does turn out to be good, I think it'd be really cool to go back to that area, since I already passed by it before, and to see, those filming locations that were in the movie. But that's only if the movie is good, right? I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it would be super cool, But anyways, let's hope that this movie, fingers crossed, is actually good, right? Now, in regards to the story, we actually know that the story will focus on the first two games. And so it'll focus on the events of Resident Evil 1 and the events of Resident Evil 2. Now, the weird thing with this information that I found, right, while reading online is that, the fact that there was no mention of the events of Resident Evil 3. And a lot of Resident Evil fans will agree with me. That's very strange that they're going to combine, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 and it'll all happen during one night, right? And so it actually won't happen, the first part of the movie isn't going to be like how it is in the games, where it actually takes place in 1998 of July, right, if I'm not mistaken, the first one. And then after a couple of months later in September, you read the events of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 take place, right? No, that's actually not going to happen. This is this movie is going to combine the events of Resident Evil 1, so the mansion incident, with the raccoon incident all at once. And this movie is going to take place in 1998, but like I said, that's really strange that Resident Evil 3 isn't mentioned, and also I can kind of see that there's probably going to be some issues, right? There's going to be some issues with the story, especially since Resident Evil 3 takes place in Raccoon City, and you have the main character, which is Jill, and Jill is also the main character in Resident Evil 1. And so I imagine, right, this is speculation now, but I imagine that, they're basically going to cut Resident Evil 3 out of the story. So I'm assuming we're probably not going to get Nemesis, Carlos, or any of that, right? But like I said, that's just speculation on my part. Now, the way they could save this, or the way they could fix this issue that a lot of Resident Evil fans are going to notice right away, is if, the first half of the movie, we have the events of Resident Evil 1 take place, and then after, near the end, Resident Evil 2 takes place, but then they basically rush the events, and they have the character of Jill pop up in Raccoon City, and then we have a second part, to the movie. But like I said, that's speculation. That's just me as a fan fixing the story, right? But yeah, I don't know why or who made this decision, but that's one way that they could fix it, right? If this movie is good, right? But like, I have no idea, right? Maybe they just cut out Resident Evil 3, right? Like I said, this is just all, I guess this is just my theory, right? And the other bit of information that I was actually reading is that the director actually had the cast members play the games, and so he as well is very familiar with the games. But I also heard in an interview that he was actually very careful with the lore, right? And so that was one thing that he was never used to as a director, was going into so much of the lore of a franchise, right? And so yeah, he actually had a lot of the cast members play the game, so that's actually a really good thing, right? Regardless of this, hopefully it affects the quality of the movie if everybody is on the same page, and like I said, fingers crossed that this movie is good. But I think that's actually one of the problems that the Mila Jovovich movies had, was that it seemed that nobody played the games, it almost seemed like no one had anything, the only Resident Evil thing that was in those movies was just the title. But yeah, and so yeah, that's a good thing. Hopefully it's good. But anyways, yeah, and the other bit of information that we know is that there was actually a synopsis that was released. And so I'm actually going to read that right now. Once the booming home of the pharmaceutical giant Umbrella Corporation, Raccoon City is now a dying Midwestern town. The company's exodus has left the city a wasteland, with great evil brewing below the surface. When that evil is unleashed, the townspeople are forever changed, and a small group of survivors must work together to uncover the truth behind Umbrella and make it through the night, returning to the terrifying roots of the massively popular Resident Evil franchise. Fan and filmmaker Johannes Roberts brings the games of the billion-dollar franchise and the most successful video game adaptation in history to life for a whole new generation of fans. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. And so that's the official synopsis for the movie. Now, as a Resident Evil fan, and I know that you guys that are listening, right, that you guys are hardcore fans, or you don't even have to be a hardcore fan to know that there was some issues with the synopsis of the story, right? And so number one, right, we have that, the first thing that I read was that the once booming home of the pharmaceutical giant Umbrella Corporation. So that's no longer like that anymore. That's really weird. That doesn't make any sense that the company has basically left. That's what it says. The company's exodus has left the city a wasteland. So I'm assuming a lot of people had jobs with this pharmaceutical company in the town. But then since its departure, you're probably going to get not that many, residents of Raccoon City. So that right there, that's a huge red flag, because it doesn't really make any sense, right? I mean, the whole reason that the outbreak occurs in Resident Evil 2 and 3 is due to the fact that, that Umbrella is working on new stuff, right? New research underneath Raccoon City, and also in the Arklay Mountains, right? In the mansion's facility. And so it doesn't make sense. Why would a company, a company that's basically shut down all of its operation, right? Why would they leave stuff underneath the city, like in the facilities, and just leave like, oh, we're just gonna leave the T virus here, the G virus over there, and if a rat it just knocks it, then that's fine, but just shut everything down. We're getting out of this town. What? That makes no sense. If the whole point of the outbreak was because they were heavily doing research on, they had government contracts. And so, they were doing heavy research on basically augmenting people and trying to create superhumans, right? Or super soldiers. And so that doesn't make any sense, right? That's a huge part of the game, and that's a little strange, right? Let me know down in the comments if you guys agree with me. I'm sure tons of you will, but that's really weird. And the other weird thing is that, the fact that the townspeople, it almost gives the sense of the synopsis, almost gives the sense that the townspeople, a lot of people have left, because it basically says the company's exodus, so Umbrella Corporation, left the city a wasteland. So that means that since the company's, has left the town, or the city, I should say, that means that there's a lot of townsfolk that decided to leave because there was no jobs, right? That's what it's insinuating. But, you can't have an outbreak with the city that's not doing well, right? That means that there's not going to be that many zombies essentially, right, in the outbreak. And so that's really strange. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys agree with me, down in the comments. But yeah, so that's everything that we know so far about the story. Next, we're actually going to be talking about the cast. And so right before we get started with the cast, I do want to mention that this is just all of the information that we know so far. There are names that are missing, right? So by names, I do mean characters. So there's major characters that are missing on this list. Again, it might be a red flag, and it kind of concerns me that we don't know who's playing these characters, or if these characters are even in this movie. But yeah, like I said, we're probably just gonna have to wait. Like I said, the first trailer is probably gonna hit real soon. But anyways, let's get started. And so Jill Valentine is actually gonna be played by Hannah John Kamen. And so she's actually known for Ant-Man and the Wasp. She played the villain. Next, we actually have Chris Redfield, who's actually gonna be played by Robbie Amell. And so Robbie Amell is actually known for movies such as Code 8, shows like Upload, and The Flash. Claire Redfield is actually gonna be played by Kaya Scodelario. And she's actually known for movies like Pirates of the Caribbean and also the Maze Runner series. Leon S. Kennedy. Now, Leon S. Kennedy is actually going to be played by Avan Jogia. Now, I don't know if I'm probably mispronouncing that. I actually don't know the origin of those names. But yeah, and so he's actually going to be playing Leon S. Kennedy. But the weird thing is, and this is the only casting choice that I was kind of confused about. Avan Jogia doesn't really look like Leon. It's kind of like as if I decided to play Leon, it's a little strange, you know what I mean? But he's actually a really funny actor, and he's actually known for Zombieland Double Tap. So he actually played the character Berkeley in that movie, and that movie was hilarious, right? If you haven't watched Zombieland Double Tap, I highly recommend that you guys watch that, because that movie was just, really fun. And so I think it's funny also that he's doing another zombie movie essentially, but hopefully he'll do a good job, right? I have no doubt, right? He's a good actor. But anyways, next up, my favorite character in the Resident Evil franchise, right? And that's Albert Wesker. And Albert Wesker is actually going to be played by Tom Hopper. So Tom Hopper, I think, is a fantastic choice. And he's known for like shows like Netflix's The Umbrella Academy. And another really good show. And I think it's funny too that, the name Umbrella Academy, and now he's playing, right, a person that's worked for the Umbrella Corporation. That's hilarious. But Tom Hopper is actually a really good actor, right? He's actually from Britain, but he does a very good American accent. And I actually have to say, right, out of all the British actors that I've seen that play as Americans, I think Tom Hopper is one of like the top actors that can play a very convincing American. I had no idea this guy was British, right, until I actually I heard him in an interview, and I was like, what? But like I said, I don't think Tom Hopper does a really good American accent, really great actor, so I am looking forward forward to his interpretation of the character. Next, we actually have Ada Wong, and she'll be played by Lily Gao, and she's actually known for The Expanse, right? And so I actually don't know much about this actress, but anyways, moving on, we actually have William Birkin. Now, William Birkin is actually going to be played by Neil McDonough. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but yeah, but Neil McDonough, I'm sure you guys have seen him in a lot of stuff, right? He's known for a lot of movies. He's a really good supporting actor, and so, you know, him playing a character in this movie, I think it'll be awesome, right? So he's, you know, known for like Captain America, First Avenger. He was in there. He played one of the villains in Red 2, you know, shows like Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow. He played the same villain, right? And so, yeah, really great actor. I actually would have thought of him, I thought he would have been a better casting choice for him to play probably like Barry, someone like that. But I don't know, right? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, whatever he plays, it's going to be good. And anyways, and lastly, we do know that Chief Irons will be played by Donald Logue. And so Donald Logue is actually known for shows like The Sons of Anarchy, Gotham, and movies like Blade 2, right? But he, again, he's a really well-known supporting actor, right? You've probably seen him in a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, and so that's the end of the casting list. But like I mentioned before, right before I started this list, there's some big names that are missing. And by names, I do mean characters, right? Like characters like Barry Burton, right? We don't know who's playing Barry, you know? It's funny. Barry, where's Barry? We don't know where Barry is, right? Like in Resident Evil 1, you know, or like characters like the Rebecca Chambers, right? Like, are they going to show us a bit about what happens with the Resident Evil 0 story, you know, because that is a prequel to Resident Evil 1. But like I said, she is the main character for Resident Evil 1, so that, you know, that's weird, you know, that's weird that she's not on the list or that we don't know who's playing her yet. But like I said, that's all the information that we know so far that's been confirmed. Right now, this list could be subject to change. Like I said, this is information that I grabbed online in articles, you know, websites such as IMDb and stuff, you know, Resident Evil Wiki. But yeah, so you know what I mean. That could pose a red flag if those characters are omitted from the story, right? I think a lot of Resident Evil fans, including myself, would be upset if we didn't get characters like Rebecca Chambers or Barry Burton who play major roles in the story, right? And so it's weird that we don't know who's playing them if they're such big characters, you know? And so yeah, but anyways, that's all the information that we know so far about Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. And just like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this movie is coming out real soon, right? And the fact that we haven't had a trailer is a little bit strange, right? And so I'm sure the trailer will probably hit in the upcoming weeks, right? And so make sure to come back to the channel and make sure to hit that subscribe button and remember to punch that notification bell if this is your guys' first time here, so that you guys always have the latest news to Resident Evil. And if this is your first time here, I actually post about everything that has to do about Resident Evil every single week. And so that includes videos on theories, news, walkthroughs, and lore videos. And so if any of those topics interest you, then consider joining the Project Wesker family. Just so you guys know, this channel is supported by Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. So make sure to check the links down below in the description, especially Patreon, to see all the perks you could get. And remember, don't worry if you're unable to sponsor the channel. Your support on YouTube and Instagram is just as important. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, enjoying, and sharing my content. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
The right to be a god. That right is now mine.